Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health After 30 podcast. Today, I am joined with Juliet Oliver. We're going into endometriosis. I would like to know, just as a statistic, if we have 5 women, how many of those women are going to be impacted or diagnosed in the future with endometriosis? Do you know that statistic?
Be half a person, because the stat is actually 1 in 10.
Okay.
But more recently, some countries have actually come out with 1 in 7. So the numbers are increasing.
Okay. Yeah, so 1 in 7 women. So that's a lot of women. That's a lot of people.
It is. Huge amount. In any friend circle, in any room, you're going to have at least one person suffering.
Yeah, incredible. So let's dive into that for those women who are out there who's like, that's me. That's me. Let's go there. So let's start perhaps with, why is endometriosis endo?
Yeah, so it stems from my journey with the disease. I guess when I turned 30, 2 major things happened in my life. I was given the career opportunity of a lifetime, but also slammed with a severe endometriosis freight train. And it was in the depths of that all of my life unraveling that, as an engineer by trade, I decided, to completely just not keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect the same result, but take on my next biggest engineering challenge. And I went really deep into the research. I lost myself to the disease and actually ended up reverse engineering my symptoms, because at the time I didn't even really know I had endometriosis. I got my diagnosis further down the track. I just knew my body was failing me, and I figured I could test and figure out what was at play at the root cause, and then nurture and nourish those systems that were dysfunctional. And so, it all led to me eventually getting my surgery, my endometriosis, stage 4 endometriosis diagnosis, and a realization that there was a whole lot more in the body at play when it comes to this chronic inflammatory disease, and that I was in control of so much of it. And so I went all in, I did a full body reset, and since then I have lived pain and symptom free. That's been 8 years now. I've started a family. And endometriosis is not a word in my life anymore. It's just a word in my new vocation, which is to give back my gold to everyone else out there suffering.
Yeah. Oh, I got shivers when you said that. Yeah. You've lived through the heart of it to get to stage 4 and then to have to kind of reverse that yourself. That's a huge feat. And I guess perhaps the engineer in you, or the scientist, so to say, in you probably just got really into it, unpacked everything. And so you found a way to obviously make that digestible for everyone now.
100%. Some of the things I found that the evidence also supports, really not hard things to change in our lives, and things that seemingly seem really innocent in our lives as well, that are actually helping to fuel the disease.
Okay, so before we go into that, let's just talk about perhaps what are some of the big misconceptions around endometriosis, or perhaps even, what are some women experiencing? Like what you were experiencing, my body's failing me. Before you get the diagnosis, what are some of these things that might be happening, which is a bit foggy for some?
The most misunderstood, misdiagnosed, and dare I say gaslit disease out there, and that's half the problem, is that we start to experience maybe some pain or some really abnormal menstrual cycles, start to feel really low in energy. We might get some IBS type symptoms, and most practitioners don't know how to put all of those preliminary symptoms together under the banner of endometriosis. Mostly because in their individual states, they look like individual other things that can be wrong with you. And so you sort of rack up this list of other things that are wrong, and you get prescribed a treatment path for each of those things individually. And so you never really get to the root cause. Meanwhile, endo is wreaking havoc on your body and getting progressively worse. So that's kind of the main misconception, or with people who suffer and people who need to treat and steer these people who suffer in the right direction. is that those early symptoms together, as a conglomerate, people don't know that that equals endo.
And then on top of that, if you're getting kind of gaslit by your doctor at the same time, then you just end up in a downward cycle. And then, you're kind of putting out little fires. IBS here, this, that, there. I'm just thinking, do I want to go into the connection of it all? Because I'm sure there is like a deep scientific connection of like how the gut's connected and all of this is all connected. With all of these symptoms that one has, what do people need to be most aware of where it could say, this actually might be endometriosis? Dig deeper here, go deeper there. What are some of the big telltale signs?
Pain. Pain is the number one endometriosis red flag. So not just period pain. Pain potentially all month long. Pain when pooping, peeing, or having sexual intercourse are big red flags as well. Even pain in strange places that aren't injury related, like sciatica pain, diaphragmatic pain, shoulder pain that is chronic and constant and isn't related to anything else. So that is the main one.
And when this comes around, I guess perhaps the most obvious thing would be, okay, I'm going to go to my doctor and get this investigated. And what's the usual series of events that's going to happen there?
Yeah, so if you come with pelvic pain as an issue, 9 times out of 10 in a Western society, you're going to get standard ultrasound. And the thing about a standard pelvic ultrasound is that it's very unlikely endometriosis will be detected by that ultrasound. The point of that ultrasound is to detect for any other larger things at play, a big cyst on your ovary, things like this. And so on the odd occasion, they might see a huge endometrioma on your ovary, but they're not going to be able to see any other type of endometriosis. And so you get the all clear or the I don't see anything wrong there. So let's push you down a different route, which is just to call it bad periods and push hormones at you to stop your periods, because then therefore you don't have to experience these symptoms. So it really requires a far more deeper investigation with 9 times out of 10 an expert at the other end of that investigation as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with just masking symptoms, right? So if we go down this route of let's take the pill, because regardless of whether you have pain or endometriosis, PCOS, like even before just menstruating as a contraception, we often, young girls, women, we get pushed the pill onto us, which can just mask so many things. And then later on, when we're trying to come off, can also cause a bunch of problems. When this happens to an endometriosis sufferer, what point is that going to then unravel itself and not be enough? When you got to stage 4, for example, does that just elevate? Like, does the pill just stop working at some point?
I guess there's a couple of things to note here. Hormone replacement or hormone birth control has its place in symptom management of endometriosis. And I think the way to approach it is to be very conscious of what you're using hormones for, and why you need them, and at what point in your endometriosis journey you're at. For some, they're an absolute lifesaver because their symptoms have become so severe that they need that reprieve of any kind, and they find one that doesn't have significant side effects that works for them. So there is definitely a place for it. However, to your point, yes, I have seen young women be on multiple types of hormones because they keep layering them in because the symptoms are getting progressively worse, and the pill is not doing what it says on the tin. Like it's first and foremost not actually even helping them that much because they're potentially on the wrong one for them, or for them the pill is just not going to be a method of controlling their symptoms that works. And so I have seen practitioners just continue to layer in heavier and heavier or more and more hormones. And that can happen. For me, yes, the pill stopped working. I came off it, and that was why I was met with this onslaught of symptoms at age 30. However, up until that point, it did a really good job of helping me to manage the symptoms of endometriosis. So it's a little bit yin and yang, and I think go in with eyes wide open. Go in knowing where your body's at before you get on it, and how potentially as much about the severity of your condition and what you need your body to do in that moment in time. And then also realize, like you said, that when you come off it, what you're potentially going to be met with, and be mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared for that shift and that change.
Yeah, no, that's such an important point because, medication does have a profound place in health and it can manage these symptoms. But yes, it's not getting to the root cause. There's probably a wide selection of women, some people on the pill, some people fumbling through symptoms, some people coming off. There are probably different different parts of each journey. But how can we perhaps, and let's get into this more, how can we support then the body, whether we're on the pill or not, to start to reverse them? Before you said there are some really minimal or insignificant things that are actually driving this. What are the main cause under really reducing symptoms and, in your case, reversing the whole condition?
A number of things you can do. And I think, but I can start with the most basic foundational ones that I would love everyone to start with. And that is really looking at the control, what I call the controllable stresses or the inflammation creators in your life. Yeah. And they're the ones that you do every day without realizing that for a body that's already chronically inflamed, because that's what the disease does, for a normal person, these things might not make any difference. But because you're already like a volcano ready to blow, adding little bits or these little extra inflammation creators on top just means you get an explosion of inflammation every day. And so it is unfortunately things like caffeine intake, alcohol, really excessive exercise, processed and refined foods, processed and refined meat. And the list goes on. So it really does just look like stripping back to the bare basics of like primal living and going back to that. Getting rid of everything the Western world has kind of like asked you to put in and on your body, and going cancel culture on it completely.
Yeah.
That includes endocrine disrupting chemicals, in the food,
in skincare products,
in the care products we put on our skin. All of these cause our body to create further inflammation and stress. So that's tip number one, is like do the best you can to get rid of these things that are completely within your control. And then what I say is there's a lot of uncontrollable stress in your life as well that keeps you in fight and flight. And, you may not be able to quit your job tomorrow. It's just not a reality for all of us.
You cannot change what's happening in another country. Yeah.
No, you cannot. Well, turn off the news. So I say, let's balance it out. Let's really balance it out. Do the best you can to balance it out. And so for many people that looks different. You could be anything from a lovely walk in nature and doing that as much as possible in your week, right through a dedicated meditation practice every day. Somewhere in there, you got to make time for activating the vagus nerve, getting into your parasympathetic, and just giving your body a time to chill and go into a complete calm state, so it can start to do some healing and some real work. And one of actually the most easiest things you can do is try to get some sleep before midnight. Like that deep restorative sleep before midnight is deep healing for the body. So yeah. And then the third thing, if I go in with a 3 to keep it nice and simple, is really looking at supporting and nourishing your body with everything it needs. So this gets back to your point about coming off the pill as well, which is more importantly when you're on it, is these key, what I call endonutrients, but just nutrients that we need to live and to thrive. And as someone with endometriosis and someone that's on the pill, you need these nutrients in way higher quantities than the average person. And as much as we like to tout that we can get enough from our food if we eat right, we just can't. Not the way that modern farming is. So I say test and optimize some really key endonutrients like zinc, magnesium, B12, iron, vitamin D, etc. And make sure you're getting really healthy levels of those every day. And that is kind of like the basic starting point or starting blocks for going on this endometriosis, like healing from endometriosis journey.
Yeah. What I really like about how and what you've said is, I feel like we hear this information: don't drink coffee, get sleep, make sure you have your macro, micronutrients and all stuff like this. But where you, I think, have really just hit it on the head is it's not even, it is about those things. It's about what you do. But why are we doing this? Because inflammation creators, endometriosis is an inflammatory condition, and all of those things are creating more inflammation. So steering it and addressing the nervous system, it was just really nicely put, because I just feel like we hear these things all the time, but to just hear it from like a more supportive direction of, let's take that time out in your week to calm. This is probably going to reverse or reduce endometriosis, but it's probably going to affect a lot of different areas of your life as, you as an entirety. Something I really, really push for: holistic health, right? So I think it's really nice, and I want to say basic, but it's not always easy. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see with the people that you work with, or perhaps that you've seen yourself, in implementing all of this? Because we know what to do and we understand why to do it now, which are two of the biggest things.
Definitely. I think two things happen in this space. It's the how does it relate uniquely to me? So how does what you've just said actually connect my dots? And that's where working with someone one-on-one can give them that aha or that light bulb moment. And also the way that we've really simply laid out the backing science behind what I just said in the app gives people that like, oh gosh, right moment. So that is necessary for someone to want to do it for themselves. They need to have that connection to, well, how does that relate to me? And then the next piece is to do something, do the lowest hanging fruit that will have the highest impact, have the most juice in it, do it up front, go all in on it, and see results rapidly from doing that one thing or those two things. And that really gives people the motivation they need, the empowerment they need, and just the hope they need in the cases of endometriosis that life can get better from where they are today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so empowering. And you've basically spent now your work, your life's work, so to say, is now supporting women to do this. And how do you do this? Can you just walk us through, because you have created platforms, systems in helping women do this. Can you just walk us through what they are and how they help?
Sure. So it is mostly just the Endo 45 app. You can get it on your app store, get it on your phone. It's at your fingertips. And inside that app is your complete roadmap to living well with endometriosis and becoming what we like to call endo fit. And so not only is it all my gold, evidence-backed, practitioner supported, it's a place to track your symptoms and your cycle, build and create these new healthy habits that you're going to need to do, but also shows you your EndoFit score. And so this score is really like your overall marker of how well you're doing living with endometriosis. And it's so important because woods from the trees with a disease like endo is not a concept. Like, you are just in the depths no matter the day, good or bad. And it's really hard to tell if anything's working, if last month was better than this month, if yesterday was slightly less pain than today, unless you really track it and then you actually have all of that information show you something. And so we like to show people that, yeah, incrementally your EndoFit score is getting better. You have moved from, off track to just managing. That's a mega thing with endometriosis. And, it really empowers them to just keep going. And like one of our EndoFit pros has said, it motivates me to continue to be the best version of myself every day. Without it, and without seeing that number and seeing how I'm tracking, I would just slip back in.
Yeah, you wouldn't
So,
even know that you've actually made the changes. It's interesting to, when you work with people to kind of scale them or score them at the start and then score them at the end, because sometimes at the end, even though they've come in with X, Y, and Z symptoms, once you're healed from a certain symptom or condition, you almost just forget that you ever even had it. How does the scoring, just to give us a bit of an idea, how does that, do you kind of survey people when they come in and then at the end, or how does that work?
yeah, so there is an onboarding to the app which sets your initial EndoFit score. It's based on 4 key pillars. So, how much chronic pain and specifically pelvic pain and how severe that is, how your gut is going, your gut health, and your bowel, any bowel issues you have, how your period health is. So, that's key one. And then lastly, how's your energy levels? How's your fatigue? And so all of that comes together to form a score. And then as you track in the app and you tell it how you're going on that front, on those symptoms, and how your periods are going and all of that, it will continue to recalculate and update your score.
I mean, you call it EndoFit. I was going to say it's almost also like a fitness tracker, but it's specifically for endometriosis.
Specifically for endometriosis, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what all the information in there is about. But, a lot of
So
people
much
would
more.
say it's just good health, right? If you're a woman anywhere, I would do everything that's in this app. And I would track everything that's in this app, because what fights endo enhances fertility, enhances energy levels, supercharges us and balances our hormones. Like, yeah, everything in there is really just equals good life.
Yeah, I was going to say some of the positive outcomes from doing or following or even treating endometriosis is not just going to be reduction of pain, but just overall improved quality of life. I mean,
Yeah.
being symptom free is already going to kind of change everything. But then with the added energy, focus, productivity, bowel movements, easy
Yeah.
periods, it's beautiful.
It's kind of ironic to think that you feel so much better at 39 than you did at 29, and that you feel like a superhuman compared to that person, and that it's possible,
Yeah.
and it is.
It is. Yeah, I think sometimes, I mean, I don't want to judge myself when I was in my 20s, but so often I think we first start to look for the easy option. So going on the pill or just even taking pain medication, that's the easy option and it will work to a certain extent, but there has to be a better way. And basically what you're providing is that better way. So that's really great. And you're based in New Zealand, but it's obviously worldwide. So this is something that is accessible to anyone around the world.
Correct. It's global. We're out there. You can download it anytime.
Yeah, wonderful. Endo 45 is an app that we can download and we track we score how we're feeling. But obviously there are things that are going to happen in our life we can't control and the things that also we can control. How does the app also perhaps help us find our triggers? Because what triggers some people might not trigger other people. And I think kind of knowing yourself and getting clear on that can also be a bit of a challenge. Does that kind of touch in on stuff like that too?
Yes, 100%. It's supposed to be your one-stop shop to put everything around how you're feeling in the day in there, so that you can see, oh, that was a bad day, and look at your comments. Oh, that's why. And when I've done that a few times and I see they're all bad days, or I got specific pain on those days when I did that thing. So yeah, it's designed to be that all-encompassing story around tracking your symptoms, your triggers, and just your general life.
And you've worked with a few women, I'm assuming, among your time of doing this. What are some of the, I want to call them testimonials, but perhaps success stories that you've heard? I mean, you are a living one yourself to be able to live endometriosis free, but I think once you have endometriosis, there's usually some firm beliefs that we have. I'm going to have surgery, for example, or only if I can get pregnant, and when I do, then the symptoms might disappear. Like I remember that was always a one. It's like, oh, if I give birth, then it's just going to disappear. Is there a story where you think like this has changed and this has happened?
Yes. I think all of our EndoFit pros do see great success with using what's in the app to better their lives. Most of them start as being completely off track with their score and reach their unique best self, which is to their own measure of where they want to get to. And best self for a lot of them looks like, or one in particular that I can think of, Neve, she's beautiful. You know, for her, it was like, she's actually younger, so she's still at university. But for her, it was everything from, oh my gosh, I can make plans now. Oh my gosh, I have enough energy to show up every day to university. And most importantly, oh my gosh, I'm now not carrying this huge bag of anxiety about whether or not I'm going to be able to have children one day. So, you know, there's all these,
Huge.
it's not just living pain free. And yes, she was having periods twice a month, fainting, vomiting. Now is like her periods are just very controllable, very manageable. Yeah, and life just looks a lot different for her. But it doesn't have to be just, oh, I'm pain free. It's everything from, yeah, just having more energy to less endo belly bloat to, you know, less stress and anxiety. All of those combined actually make up a monumental shift in someone's life who's really gone into a hole with endometriosis and whose body is at a point, like a breaking point.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on anxiety and depression because often when we have conditions, that will usually, like, it's like the unseen stress that's on our body. So even though we think we can control it, as long as we're telling ourselves, for example, I'm not going to be able to have children because I have endometriosis. She's young at uni. She's probably not even thinking about that right now, but just carrying that emotional baggage with her, that affects everything. That's really impactful.
Yeah. And
So,
most of the young people I speak to, their number one concern is that they won't be able to have children. And they're barely 20 something.
yeah,
That's pretty horrible.
it is because they're not even at the point where they're thinking about it, but they're already thinking about it and already self-doubting that
Yeah.
this might not even be possible.
Yeah. And wondering if they need to freeze eggs at 25. You know, it's a pretty crazy place.
That's huge. I think No 45 and what I'm kind of taking from all of this is the ability to perhaps listen to our bodies or get in touch with our body, reconnect with our bodies because it presents itself, but, you know, it's giving us kind of signs and symptoms of something's not right and we need to kind of get back in touch. And you're helping, it sounds like, yeah, you're helping women do that. You're creating the shift. But in the wider medical world, perhaps not everyone's there yet, as you talked about. Different symptoms just getting treated differently, being gaslit or just being, you know, put on birth control. So how would you like to see the treatment of endometriosis change in the future? Or how do you see it changing?
Yes, I think the world is slowly waking up to the fact that a multimodal or integrative approach to endometriosis is where you see the most success. Even the medical system is waking up to that. And so there are the attempt to build endometriosis clinics, I guess, where you can get access to the multidisciplinary approach of practitioners you might need to go on this journey. But I think that's one way, and really the future, it probably is at the forefront of technologies and medical breakthroughs like femtech and a community of us, not just us, but a community of us bringing all of the tools that someone would need to, like you say, get deeply back in touch with their body, do the tests they need, figure out what the imbalances are, figure out how's best for them to right those wrongs and how to do it quickly as well and effectively, like from the comfort of their own home on their own time, at an affordable price. That's really what is going to change the game for millions, not just a few. And then I think as well, in terms of treatment, from a medical standpoint, I really like following the people that are at the intersection of understanding why it is that our immune system doesn't clear out these endo-like cells, why it gets confused and actually, in fact, invites them into the body party, hooks them up with oxygen and blood supply, and lets these nasty cells grow into lesions. And I think whoever interrupts or retrains the immune system at that point in time and inevitably eliminates endometriosis before it ever is endometriosis, that's the game-changing treatment we need in the world.
Yeah, wonderful. You sound like you've got your finger on the pulse and you're just waiting for the research to come out and kind of catch up with what you're already doing. Wonderful. So we find you in our app store under
Endo 45.
Endo 45.
Yeah.
We find you at your website.
Yes,
Endo45.com
or .co.nz. And on Instagram, Endo_45. Yeah.
Why 45?
Good question. I used to be a big boot camp, what we call F45 here, trainer. The app was birthed from my frustration with not being able to go to one place and get everything that's known to work for endo. And I used to liken it to like, I just need a boot camp for my endo. Like I need the 8-week program, you know? I'm one of those A-types. Just turn it all around. And like, I'm all in. I want results fast, you know? And the play on that for me was turning F40. It's like F45 for your endo. It's boot camp for your endo.
Endo, yeah.
But of course, you can take it at your own pace. So you don't have to do it all in 8 weeks.
Yeah. And it's so much more. It's not just you get to the other side and you're fit. You're not just get to the other side and you're endo fit, but you have also just done a complete self-exploration in getting in touch with yourself and improving every other aspect of your life.
Yeah. And really laying the foundations for any other journey your body is going to need to go on, whether that's a fertility one, perimenopause one, and, you know, you're in a great place to really like thrive through that.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely, because it doesn't end with just being symptom-free or endometriosis-free, because as women, I feel like our whole entire lives are just one cycle after the next, whether you choose to have children or not. That's even a cycle in and itself, going through pregnancy or not, and then all women just meeting at the end, going through menopause. So my last question to you is, if you had a billboard in Times Square and you could put one thing on it.
Stop endo, now you can.
Yeah, putting the power into the hand of the women.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So that's huge. So everything that you've built so far is, I mean, just connecting now that you're from New Zealand, I'm from Australia. Like I know that we're kind of, the end of the world, so to say, but you've made it to the big city. So that's huge. Congratulations on the work that you've done, the work that you're doing, and the lives, in essence, that you're changing as well. That's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here and sharing this. Is there any last things that you would like to part way with?
Less is more. Less is more in all elements of life. So, and especially when managing your endo. And on the bad days, just do less. Okay?
Beautiful. Thank you, Juliet.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. You could have been listening to anything, but you're here interested in reclaiming your health. I hope you found the episode useful and constructive. If you enjoyed it and would like to show support for the show, please leave a review, as this makes my content more discoverable for other people to enjoy and learn from. Please also consider subscribing to the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy listening. Finally, the best way to show support for the show is by sharing it with someone who you think might benefit from it. Thanks for listening, be well, and I'll catch you next time.